WorthWhile brand, and I hope you understand. Work hard, play hard, get up, stack bands. Time to get up, dance, clap your hands. Chillin' in the club with all my friends. Living in the moment, hope it's never gonna end. Love a new beginner, but I skip to the end. I listen to the beat, I hope to ascend. I hope to cherish, and I hope to win.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this week's WorthWhile Spotlight. I'm excited to have our guest today, Andrea Ham.
Hello.
Nice to officially meet you in person. Good Seeds Entertainment, correct, is what your business is. Talk to me a little bit about that. It's about spreading positivity and planting seeds in people's life.
That's right.
Okay.
You nailed it. Yeah, Good Seeds Entertainment is actually a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
That's think of like a media company, and we exist to inspire, to encourage, and to uplift, and just to create and produce positive content for people, to sow good seeds in the hearts and minds of people. So,
Where'd that stem from? How long's it been?
yeah, we just launched last year, I believe, and so yeah, I think it's just been in my heart for a long time, growing up in the entertainment industry and also the Christian music ministry side too. There was just this like crossroads and this blend that I was like, I want to be able to make a positive difference in the entertainment industry, but also staying true to who I am as a believer and as someone of faith. So yeah.
Nice. What did you do prior to this? You said entertainment industry?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family of gospel singers since I was a little girl. I'm from Texas, and so I grew up singing on a gospel music television show called Texas Country Gospel with my grandparents, my aunt, my mom. And so I just kind of grew up around cameras and around music and then singing about Jesus. And so I just grew up and went to college in Nashville at Belmont University, and then just kept singing, and I started doing a lot of singing. And so, yeah, I sang with a country music artist for a couple of years, Carrie Underwood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I ended up on The Voice season 12 and was on Blake Shelton's team. And
Nice.
so I kind of hit some highlights there, but.
Nice. What did you go to school for?
Yeah, I went to school for music business.
Okay. So that kind of fall into that realm?
Yeah, it did. I actually transferred in for vocal performance, and the first day I got there, and I was sitting in class, and they're writing all this like theory on the board, and I was like, okay, this is not for me. Like
music theory?
Yes,
like,
music
okay.
theory, and I was like, I do not want to do this. I felt like I knew how to sing, and I was like, I don't need to learn how to sing. I want to learn about business. I don't know about business, and so I immediately transferred out, and I was like, I think I would like to know where the money goes and how it works, and So, yeah.
Prior to starting the podcast, I heard like before we started, you said something about like singing back in your younger time frames, and that it was like a spirit singing through you in a sense.
Yeah.
You think like at school, like when you seen this theory and stuff, you're like that's too complex. It's because like you knew it was already coming through you.
Yeah, totally. I never thought about it. Yeah, that's definitely could be it. I think I felt that I had a purpose with my singing, and I didn't want to be super like, just
It needs to be this
exactly
way. Yeah,
like that's
fit
just
into a box.
Exactly, that's
yeah.
not how I'm wired. Like I'm
Yeah.
not that rich. I'm very spontaneous and creative, and so I knew that I wanted to use it as more of a purpose and to be helpful for other people, and not to know it so I can like train other people or to educate people. I knew I didn't want to. I just wanted to impact, and so I wanted to figure out how I could do that
Nice.
in a greater way. Yeah.
And then fast forwarding, like that led to Good Seeds Entertainment. And instead of what happened in between that,
yeah.
leaving school to finding this and wanting to start this.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So when I graduated from college, I actually was singing at a church in Nashville, and I just fell in love with worship music. And prior to that, I grew up in a Christian like culture community, but I didn't really listen to Christian music. Like I was listening to like, just all the pop music, and here and there I would listen to like worship music, like Hillsong. I was like always gravitated to them, and I was like, oh, I love that. I started singing worship music, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I actually spent some time out in Redding, California, at Bethel Church. Kind of what came out of there was Jesus culture, but now Bethel music is now kind of bigger in the worship scene. But they had a worship school, and I saw something there that I had never seen. It was like this excellence of music, and and worship music, but they were doing something different I had never seen, and it was like called spontaneous worship. And so they were just singing under the inspiration of the Spirit of God. And so songs were being written on stage, like in the moment. And I had never seen that. I had just seen like sing a verse and a chorus like you would on any other song. And these moments were happening that I was like, whoa, this is something I want to experience like again and again. And so I got introduced to that, and I think kind of got like addicted to that. Like I was like, I want more of that. And so it was interesting. I really got filled up with the Lord and what he wanted and just being in his presence. And I was going to go back home and sell my car and move there because they have a school of worship that's a lot longer, a school of ministry. And prior to that, I had never thought about it because I had my degree and I was just going to do business and singing. But I prayed and I actually fasted about moving there. And the Lord completely shut the door. And that weekend, I got a call to audition and sing for Carrie Underwood. And I had never thought about singing for anybody else. I had never like tried to, people have asked me like, well, how'd you get that gig? Like, how did you do it? Like,
when you say singing for, what do you mean by that? Like,
yeah, I was Carrie Underwood's background singer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. For a couple of years. And so I felt like, okay, I was supposed to. And what I heard the Lord say was, I was kind of like down that I didn't like, that the Lord kind of shut the door. I actually didn't get into the school of ministry, which for the first year ever, they were over capacity. And so they didn't have people. And I was like, Lord, I thought I heard you. And then that same weekend, I get this call out of nowhere to audition to sing for her. And I said, okay, God, I think you're doing something. And so I heard him say, well, you're filled up, now go release. I wanted to go and just stay in that like place and in that presence of God where I could just keep getting filled and filled and filled. But I felt like the Lord was like, no, it's time for you to go and to give out what I've given you.
Yeah.
So I did for a couple of years. And it was an amazing experience, and really, really grateful for that experience because I learned a lot about myself and about the entertainment industry, about business, about tour life, a lot. Like I had never been on a bus, like a tour bus, and in that way. And I was actually like living on this tour bus with like 8 other guys, and I was the only girl. And there was a lot of learning in that, and a lot of fun stories to share. And so I think it all happened for a reason for sure, and I'm really grateful for that. So coming out of that, I just transitioned out and felt like the Lord was calling me to do my own thing, and so just started doing my own music and was background singing for people. Well, actually, not much background singing. I was singing vocal demos, vocal sessions for people who were writing songs, and went through a season of that, and then had a really not good experience with someone who wanted to cut like a couple songs on me. And I feel like in the entertainment industry, you have to go through a couple of like getting burned to be like, okay,
I see what's going on.
Yeah, this is what's happening. And so one of those things happened, and I was super down. And during that time, I was like, God, what the heck? Like, how did you let this happen? And someone reached out to me from The Voice and asked if I would come and audition. So they flew me out to Hollywood, and the rest is history on that. So
fair. There's you said that when you first started, like, was it at Bethel? You said,
yeah.
When you were singing and you were seeing this happen and stuff, but you were like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with like I don't know what I want to do. Like, what did that moment feel like, and like how did you know? If that's, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
definitely. I think when your gifting and your passion like intersect, like I feel like that's when what you're called to do.
When you're aligned with it.
Yeah, aligned with it. So like my gifting is like, if people have affirmed your gifting, then you know that's people like, well, how do I know if I'm like good or like if I'm gifted or whatever? When people have affirmed your gifting and it's like you know it. Like it's
people, you keep hearing that.
Yeah, you keep hearing it. Yeah, there's an affirmation. There's doors that open in that way versus you're just like singing to yourself and thinking you're the best thing in the world. So I think when your gifting aligns, and then when your passion of like, would I do this without getting paid? Yes. So I think when those two come together, it's like, oh, this is like right here where my purpose is.
Yeah.
And so I really felt that. And so it was confusing at first when I didn't continue in that. I think I was 20, I want to say like 26 at that time, and I was confused, and so I prayed about it. And so when this happened with the Open Door with Carrie, it felt like a detour. Like, why am I doing this? But for me, it was definitely like, I felt like it was kingdom. Like the Lord was using me in that space, and he did. Like, I felt like I was called to minister to everyone that I was around, and to release what I was so filled up with the Lord. Like, I would be reading my Bible like on the flights and in the bus, and like just, it was, I was just truly being who I was, not trying to be whatever. I was just so sold out and like in love with the Lord. And I think in that moment, especially in that season with the band and with everybody, that's just what needed. Like, everyone needed that. And so so along that, like, I think now where I am is, it's really cool. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but like just being able to continue worship. Like, it's who I am. Like, worship is a lifestyle. I think especially now we call like worship, meaning like the 30-minute section at like the top of the hour for your church service. That would be called worship music. But worship is like a lifestyle of like who you are, like as a believer. And so I think as that's who I am, translating that into music is just like an incredible tool that we're able to give the Lord an experience, and so invite other people to give the Lord an experience and to minister to him. So now I get to actually sometimes lead worship with my husband, which is really cool.
Nice.
So that just happened this last Sunday, and it's just cool to see how God is just, there's seasons for everything. And I think a lot of times we have this strong gifting on our life, and I definitely was this person where I thought, well, this is the only thing I'm going to be doing. And so I have my gifting.
You locked your vision in. Yeah.
And I was like, well, singing's it. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing. And I held on to that. And someone came to me and was like, with the Lord gives gifts, but he will take that gift out for a season to put another, to use you in a different way.
And to touch on that, like when you're saying, like when it takes that out, that's that feeling of lost and confusion
100%.
Where people are like, why is this happening? I don't understand this. Like, that's happening for another entrance of something.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's perfect. I was actually just reading a past journal entry that I had, and I was talking about how don't be surprised when the Lord uses you outside of your gifting. It's because if he only used you in your gifting, it would glorify you.
Yeah.
But when he uses you outside of your gifting, he gives you a grace to do something you're not really wired to do. But he's using you in that season. And so that's what I've seen the Lord continue to do, because I feel like it was my identity for a long time of singing. And that's just what I do. And so I struggled with that when I would do different seasons. But along the way, I always knew that it was the Lord, it was his gift. And so I wanted to be a good steward of it. But just as a human, I was always trying to wrestle with my identity and what that was. And so now I know my identity is I'm a child of God. Like, period, full stop. Like, that's my identity. Like, that's enough. I'm in him. And I have my worth and my value. Everything stems from I am his and he is mine. And so everything else he gives me is just like a cherry on top. It's just, it's an overflow. It's an extra. It's a bonus. It's wonderful. But what happens is you take that gifting that draws attention to you. I recently listened to a sermon by Christine Kane, and she said, if the light in you is not greater than the light upon you, like, it's for destruction, right? So like the light in us has to be greater than the light that's upon us, like the stage light and the influence that we get. And so I think, I've learned a lot along the way with singing, and I love to sing. But it's cool today how God is using singing. But there's been seasons, a couple of years, that even after The Voice was like, whoa, that was such a ride, and then really not much singing after that. And now I see that the Lord has moved on my heart these other things, like Good Season Entertainment, and what we're doing now through that. And that, to me, I want to give my life to, because it's also in that intersection of, it's my passion, because it's what I grew up with and the Lord's using, but also it's fueled by him. And so it doesn't feel like it's is it turning my back on like singing or whatever. It's actually like an addition.
Yeah. What all is it going to entail? Like, that's the nonprofit, correct?
Yeah.
What do you do with it? Like,
Yeah. Well, our first project that we have been working on for the past year is a project called A Sound of Hope. And it's really a brand. And so the first thing that we are doing out of this brand is a TV series. And Sound of Hope is designed to raise awareness and amplify hope for mental health. And so we're doing that through opening the conversation to get people talking about it, to break the stigma, and to create a sound of hope, to really allow people to share in their pain, their trauma, their struggle, and know that you're not alone, and that you are not what happened to you, and you have a valuable, significant contribution to society, and we believe in you, and you can do it. And so we want to share stories of hope, people who have come through, from suicide attempts to just day in and day out, anxiety, depression, people who struggle with, have bipolar disorder, and to realize that it's possible to live healthy. We want to be healthy in spirit, body, and mind, and just release hope in that way.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Have you what inspired? Was there an inspiration that you had to want to do that, or do you think it was kind of like passed through you?
Yeah, so A Sound of Hope, for sure, it actually came first. So A Sound of Hope came before the nonprofit was launched. So 3 years ago, our family experienced 3 different people take their life, die by suicide. And the last person, within 1 year, this happened. It was like bam, bam, and then bam. The last person was our cousin, Lindsay. And we grew up together, and she and I were the same age, and very similar stories, but very different. And it was a huge shock to our family.
Was it unexpected?
Devastating. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there was warning signs like the month before, but no one. I mean, she had 2 children, and it was just devastating. So we felt like it was such a attack to our family, and also just a pulse on what's actually happening to the world around us. We're not the only ones. That's the biggest thing that we discovered. This was a global epidemic, and it's only getting worse. And so my mother and I actually started we created an event called A Sound of Hope in Fort Worth, Texas. This is where kind of like the radius, 45-mile radius where it was happening. And we wanted to release A Sound of Hope. So we just brought people together. We did music, we did worship music. We had speakers come. We had suicide survivors come. We had family members of suicide, people who had committed suicide, and come and just share and just have a time of like giving people like warning signs and allowing them to feel that it was okay, that if they were experiencing these types of emotions and these feelings, that like it's okay, other people are too, and we're here to help, and we want you to reach out to us. And so just kind of equipping and educating people who have family members and loved ones that are going through this. And so that's kind of where it started, and then it was like, oh, this needs to continue. And so my heart was just like, I felt like I was giving birth to this. Like this has been something I've been working on for the past almost 4 years. And there have been seasons where I've wanted to give up. It has felt so heavy and so strong, and I know that when it starts feeling really heavy that I'm trying to take on too much, and this is not for me to take on. Like the weight is too heavy, I will be crushed underneath it. And so just allowing other people to come alongside of me, and God began to speak to me in times of prayer of this is bigger than just this one project. And so he started talking to me about the nonprofit. And so now I have a board, and I have people who are there to support us, my husband and I, and what we are doing. And just we want to be a hub, a haven for people to come and experience hope-filled content, faith-filled content. And so we don't know what it's all going to look like, but we have some big vision and big ideas, and we have a lot of people who are incredibly talented and have done a lot of wonderful things. So we're really blessed and excited for what's coming.
I would like to. How was the process of forming the nonprofit? Was that a strenuous process or not? Because ironically, I'm meeting with some people tomorrow about
Yeah.
starting a nonprofit, and we're
Cool.
holding an event in October
Okay.
to like, it's called a Worthy Cause, but we
Very
would
cool.
like to start trying to get into the schools like 4th to like 6th grade
Love
time
it.
frames, because like
Yes.
that's like the moldable area where people are,
Yeah.
I feel like, aren't being told like you could like, there's no safe area at school in a sense anymore. So like
Yeah.
we want to try and like spread the awareness about it.
Yeah.
And the people with that is one's a physical therapist and one's a nutritionist.
Cool.
And then like I'm kind of like in the mental health realm, so like it's almost like the trifecta of like
Come
all
on.
three in a
Yeah.
sense. But was it difficult? Did you have like stuff that was like pushing against it you had to fight over, or not fight
yes.
over but fight through?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually formed this during COVID, during 2020. So when everything was shut down, and my husband and I had just had a very big transition move. We moved from Nashville, Tennessee to Orlando, Florida.
Oh wow, that's where I was born.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that's where my husband was born
Oh,
and
wow.
raised, yeah.
Nice.
And so his family lived there, and his father had experienced a brain aneurysm a few years prior and survived. And my husband really wanted to be closer to him and have time with him. And simultaneously, the Lord opened a door with his job, and he actually got a huge promotion to a different company. And so he took the position. So during this time, I was living with my in-laws for like 9 months. It was very difficult, but also wonderful. And during that time, I started working on the nonprofit, and I talked to a lot of different people. I had a lot of different calls, trying to get advice on, what attorney to use, if I could do it on my own, or if I needed an attorney, and so I had to really push through. It was actually quite difficult in the actual
Setting
it up.
Yeah.
It's actually not difficult to get approved, is what I had heard, and that was grateful for. If you have your ducks in a row and you're actually legit doing something for society, in a positive way. So, but all the ins and outs. It was kind of difficult. I had to hire an attorney, and she really helped me, and just all the business plan and the numbers, and I think the name too. That was actually kind of hard for a while. I went back and forth on different
Deciding.
names. Oh yeah, so much pressure.
What was another option that you were thinking about?
Oh man, I had so many. I was like, the one I really liked. What was it called? I had like the Hope Society, or like, what was some? I just have lists of. I'm trying to think of the weather.
Now that you've focused on that one, you
I don't
thought
even
about
know.
the other ones.
I know. But actually, it's kind of cool. The name of our nonprofit is a nod to my parents. They were also musicians and singers and songwriters, and they traveled, and we grew up traveling with them and them singing, and they made lots of different albums. And my mother wrote a song called Good Seeds. And it's an amazing song about just planting good seeds and allowing God to give the increase. And so when the name came to me, I was like, oh man, like this is what I love.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier you were journaling.
Yeah.
When did you start journaling? Have you done that for a while?
Yeah, I've done it for a while. I'm going to be completely transparent. I am not very disciplined with it.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be disciplined.
Right, exactly. And I noticed that this is bad, but I usually only journal when I'm going through a difficult time. But that's also my coping strategy.
It's an outlet.
It's my outlet, definitely. Songwriting too, for sure. But journaling, I look back and I'm like, it's always like a prayer. It's always like, this is what's going on, or this happened, and it's been really wonderful. And I mean, there's times too where I take like notes of different things that inspire me, so that's always super helpful. But yeah, I was just looking back, and I'm like, I'm so glad I had a journal to be able to process this. And a lot of times you don't even realize what's in you until it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I say that?
There's like a connection between like your mind, and like once you start writing, it's almost like it's just flowing out of you. Songwriting and journaling.
Oh yeah.
That's
I've known for a long time. I mean, it's helpful, and sometimes to do what's good, but you don't do it. But I think for me, in these moments, it's like you can't not stop me. Like it's like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. Any other avenues of an outlet that you've discovered on your journey?
Am I journaling?
Oh, your journey.
Oh, my journey.
Yeah.
With when I'm like going through a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, one you'd probably imagine, but for sure prayer. think that's a big part of my life, for sure. I remember as a little girl feeling and seeing the power of prayer. Like even as a little girl, like I'm like, oh, this works. Like this works. And so,
do you mind giving me an example?
I think, well, I have to say, like my mom was a great mentor, and so I have memories very vivid when she was in her prayer time that she would call me and my brother and sister in, and she would make us kneel down at the couch, and we would recite the Father's Prayer, and like that was always ingrained in me. So I would say the Father's Prayer, but I think so my mom and dad, they're still married, but they, like every marriage, had difficulties. Yeah. And there would be times that, you know, I would hear my mother praying like in the middle of the night, and like I don't know where my dad was, you know, and I saw that as a little girl, like the power, and then like the restoration on the other side, that the story that came after of like what my dad was going through and addiction and just different stuff that like if my mom hadn't been praying, then he wouldn't be here, you know. So I saw that. And so for me, I think praying for my family when I was young, and going through just difficult times with my dad,
it showed the power.
I saw the power. Yeah, I saw the power of it through my mom, and then being able to operate in myself, and then just my little struggles or my little things that was going on, and knowing that what happened didn't have to happen had I not prayed, you know, and to just write it off as coincidence was like, it was beyond that, you know. So yeah, I think for me, prayer for sure, and I'm a verbal processor, so I always talk about, you know, so having someone to bounce stuff off with. Now it's my husband, you know, girlfriends. I've been really blessed to have usually a spiritual mentor in my life, or someone that I can go to, and I think that has saved. And my mom. My mom's probably like my biggest spiritual mentor. But people who don't have that, I'm like, oh man, like if there was something I could tell somebody in their youth, at any age in their life, but is to find people they're doing it right. Like there's something about their life that you like, that you know, they're successful or they're healthy or like whatever it is, and to get around them, and to serve them, because when you love on somebody and serve them, you start to have influence in their life and be able, you know, to be, you know, that's a way that you can, you know, them to see you. If you feel like I don't know how they would see me, and so I think that's really huge, because, you know, the scripture says that in the multitude of counselors, there's wisdom. So there's a lot of times where we think one thing or we're seeing it one way, and then you tell someone and they're like, oh, no.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah, different perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's why people go to therapy. And so I would, you know, I think therapy and counseling. But when I was a teenager, even in my 20s, like, people didn't do that, or like I didn't have access to that, or didn't think my problems were even like big enough to, you know. So to be able to have friends and family, that I could talk to.
What would you say the reason is now for like the rise of the stigma of mental health? Like, I feel like there's like social media has a huge influence on it, and then there's just like, I don't know, there's so much negativity out here now. But like, I mean, what do you think on that? I mean, there's so much. I mean,
it's multi-layered for sure. I think it's a spirit, body, mind issue. So that's the multi-layered.
Yeah.
So
there's a disconnect between those three layers.
Totally. Take the spirit side, the lack of faith in the country, the lack of God, taking out God in every way they can find possible, from schools to churches to wherever, to, you know, that not being like a priority in people's lives, not having a faith community that you can lean on, a relationship with God. So the spiritual side for sure. Then the body side, I feel like there's a huge gap with from food industry to what we're eating, you know, just our fast food society, to what they're allowing. Like, I think nutrition wise, like, you know,
bad
you
stuff
are what
in
you
there.
eat. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's medicine to your body. And so you wonder why, like, you're feeling low energy, you don't feel like your joints are hurting, and it's the sugar, it's all the things, and then you get overweight, and then it's all these that start building. So the body side starting to like deconstruct and start to dismantle, right? And then mentally, with the mind, we're so self-focused. Our society, especially in the Western culture, I mean, it's globally, but it's you know, I hate to say it, but sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's like it's the fame, it's the love of money, it's what we idolize. And so add the mental side of, yes, adding social media and technology and all of that.
It glorifies that.
Glorifies,
side.
yeah. It's an inflated self-image, you know, and we're trying to live someone else's life, and so you'll never be able to sustain that and keep up with that. And so it's this trifecta that's happening, and then I feel like the kicker is like when it's like building your house on the sand, right?
No foundation.
There's no foundation. So what happens, what I'm about to say happens, I feel like a lot of times when people reach their 20s and 30s and 40s, they start to gain some type of traction or like success or like whatever it is that they're going after. Maybe they haven't even gotten it yet, but they're almost there, they're getting it. And then there's a trigger that happens. They have stress, something doesn't work out. And I feel like most of the time it's a trauma-induced breakdown. And so there's unresolved trauma.
Childhood trauma.
Unresolved trauma that they haven't dealt with. It's this haunting thing that they've kept in the closet. And when all these other things are swirling and they've been, you know, it's been keeping their attention, they've been climbing the ladder, so they're just surviving. They're just going after something, and then finally when it's gone. It's gone. It's taken from them, or maybe they have achieved it, and they realize, oh, getting married didn't fulfill me. Oh, getting that job didn't fulfill me. Oh, getting that amount of money didn't fulfill me, or getting that many followers didn't fulfill me. Then something happens to where they have to actually deal with who they are, what's going on. And so through this process with Sound of Hope, my heart has really gone after like allowing people to find healing and freedom from childhood trauma, because it's happened to us all.
Yeah, and everybody has their inner child
100%.
That's there.
Yeah.
And so it's wild. I'm not going to say her name, but there's a lady that I'm friends with that like almost has been like, we realized, like we worked together at Southern Tray Steakhouse here, and we both at the same time realized we were on a path, like on that spiritual like journey.
Yeah.
And this was like 3 years ago, I'd say, and through just conversations and like we've just stayed in contact. There was something that she had said one day that like she was like, this was happening, but I seen my younger self and like something, and I was like, you seen her for a reason, like what do you think that is? And like obviously that was like a touchy subject, and she didn't open up a lot about it. But fast forward like 4 months, I actually did a guided meditation with her and like had her go visit her younger self, and like we pinpointed a specific thing that happened, and like she visited that and like talked to herself and like told her younger self that she loved herself, and from that moment it wasn't just like it happened and like I'm a completely different person, but she was aware that she was in there. And
That's
then
so good.
you could listen to her, bring attention to her, and like it's gradually she's just being more and more herself, and like that light is shining there. So it's definitely a thing, and I think that the childhood trauma aspect is really starting to be talked about when it's been there the whole time. It's wild.
Oh, it's wild because we're all embarrassed of our own story.
Yeah.
Like we all think like, oh my gosh, I would never want anyone to know about that.
Versus, this is what makes me who I am. I can make this a power tool.
Yeah. Well, and because I think when you're a child, you take on these beliefs, these lies, these wounds that were never meant to be there and weren't your fault, but you take them on as either they were, because we through this process with Sound of Hope, we've been introduced to a man named Dr. Terry Smith, and he created a process called the Core Story, and it maps your first 18 years of your life. And what he says is, children are the best recorders and the worst interpreters. Meaning a child at 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, they could hear something.
A sponge.
Yeah, and they could record it, but they interpret it as, oh, that was my fault, or I did that, or whatever. And things that happened to them. Oh, well, I incited that, I did that. That was, and so you take that child lie that you experienced because you only had so many tools in your tool belt to process that, and you're living out that lie in your adulthood. Or like, let's say something tragic happens to you. I was able to, my husband and I are trained facilitators to map people's stories. And in that, they find their core lie, their core wound, and they get to replace it with their core truth. And they get to see, themselves as a 12-year-old, because they say by the age of 12 years old, you determine 3 things: power and control, affection and esteem, and security and survival. So by the age of 12, you determine how people see you, how you are going to receive love, how you're going to control the atmosphere. And so there was a woman's story that I was helping to map, and she hadn't told anybody. She was actually in her 70s, and and very few people knew, but her sister she was, I think, 6, and her little sister, they were in the river, and she drowned. And she blamed herself for her sister drowning because her mom said, "Hey, watch your little sister." She's 6 years old, though. So her whole life, though, she has lived her life trying to rescue people and trying to help people. And so she just overly is trying to accommodate everyone else because she's trying to rescue them. And I just see that in so many of us, is that like we can take that story and be like, oh my gosh, I do that. And so when we map people's story, they get to see their first 18 years and what their 12-year-old belief was. And usually their 12-year-old belief, if they have not healed and they haven't done any hard work of therapy and inner work, they're still believing that lie. 60-year-old man is still believing that 12-year-old little boy that I'm not good enough because daddy left and this is what happened, And so when I see how clear it is, and then I see anxiety and depression, those are just the symptoms of a root issue that's causing this pain, that's causing this torment. But what if we could discover the core truth about who we are? What if we could see that we're not what happened to us? That our life does have value.
That doesn't define you.
That doesn't define my future. That I get to decide today who I'm going to be and how I'm going to respond to my adversity, how I'm going to respond to my trauma. And I think allowing people to get their control back. I think with suicide epidemic, people are getting their control back by taking their life, by ending their life. Because their life feels so out of control that the last thing they can do is like, I got you, I'm going to take control. So I think if we can empower people to take that control in a different way to find healing. And it's hard. But I believe if you allow the Holy Spirit, if you allow faith aspect to come in, it's going to be a lot easier because you can have help and you can have hope, So I think really allowing people to see that spirit, body, mind, the fullness, the completeness of who you are. Because people try to come at it mentally, just psychiatry, and just medicating it. Well, that's just mental. Yeah. But your body is spirit. Who you are, spirit, body, mind. So you've got to come. I'm pro medicine. I really am. Like for people who have chemical imbalances or if they need to get out of a tough spot, like it's okay if you need help. There's no shame in that. But don't just see it one way. You need to take care of your emotions. You need to take care of what happened to you. You need to feed your body right. You need to exercise. There is a fullness to who we are. And when we really lean into the fullness of who we are, we have full health. And
That too, with like the medicine aspect, it's like there is like the prescriptions of like, here, this will help this, which it may help it, but they don't mention anything else about like the why it's happening.
Yeah, why are you experiencing anxiety?
Like it's just finding the solution instead of figuring out the question, the problem.
And then that's just another whole conversation of like just how messed up that our healthcare industry is. And doctors, there's I don't know if you know this, but there's a gigantic shortage on doctors.
Really?
That's why there's so many nurses that are now like you're not even seeing a doctor, you're seeing a nurse, and beyond that, like they have such a small window. They have 15 minutes. They don't have time to ask you.
Which they're being told to have.
Yes, exactly.
Minutes. Yeah.
They don't have time to ask you, why are you experiencing like this anxiety or depression, or why are you experiencing like hopelessness, or why are you feeling like you're really tired, and they don't ask those questions because they don't have time for it because they have the next person that's paying their bills, and number two, they get incentives to write a prescription for Xanax, for whatever it is they're trying to give you. And so it's so messed up that's another reason why I'm passionate to be like, hey, let's share. There's another way. Let's share something that's free. You don't have to wait 6 months to see a psychiatrist. Like, just allow yourself to know that there's hope, and that, you know, there's a reason why you're feeling the way you are, you know, and so there's so many things that I want to keep saying on that, about how important like community is, and people, you know, we're just so isolated right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But people are the answer. Like this, what we're doing right now, it's the answer. You know,
Talking about
yeah,
it. Yeah. What's the, I know you said that like there's a childhood lie that like, you know, people are living out,
Yeah.
and you replace that with the truth. Like what's the filling that with the truth look like?
Yeah.
Is it, would you say like redoing like what had happened, or like, I don't, you see what I'm saying? Like what's that, like for instance, the lady that was, what you said, 70, 77?
She was in her 70s. She was like early 70s.
Okay, but like, you know, replacing that truth of like, what's that truth? It's like, it's not your fault, or?
So it could be. So for the core story, this curriculum that's there, which is amazing, there are some prompters. There's 5 prompters. That could be your core lie, your core wound, and then there's 5 prompters. It's like, look at this list, and that could be your core truths. Some of the prompters for your core truth is like, I am loved, I am forgiven, I have immeasurable value, I'm not alone, I'm a gift, it's not my fault. You know, so those are some prompters, but somebody might have another one that comes to them immediately. And, you know, but some of the core wounds that are usually people's core wounds is I'm rejected, abandoned, I'm forgotten. There's a few others, and then the core lie was like the biggest one that most people is I'm not good enough.
But what's interesting, just crossed my mind with
Yeah.
that, is, you know, I've a couple of talks with Aaron as well. Is like the I am that I am out of the Bible. I don't know specifically what verse it is,
Yeah.
but what you just said too is like the I am okay, I am loved. Essentially, that child is the I am, because that is still you.
Totally.
It's just a grown, like everything's been piled on top of you, but like that's still the I am. And what you're saying is not necessarily affecting you right now, but it's talking to that core child.
What you're doing is you're having a conversation with your 12-year-old self or your childhood self that experienced this, and you're saying, okay, I'm an adult now. I get to choose what I believe. I didn't get to choose that as a child.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools. I wasn't mentally prepared for that at all.
Yeah.
So I had to do something. I had to survive in that moment, and there was something that happened to me, and I made a decision then. But that's not the decision I'm going to make now. So you confront it. You say, okay, this as an adult, this is who I am now. I confront this core lie that as a child that I felt abandoned and rejected, and that I'm not good enough and I'm not loved. And now I'm going to confront that and say, but the truth is, the core truth is, now as an adult I can see I am loved, that I'm not forgotten, and that I have immeasurable value. And so you're now able to take control of that. Now here's the thing. Every day that you wake up, your brain there is something that happened with a child that your neural pathways, you have been wired to believe a certain thing. And that's why just sidebar, I'm not a doctor or whatever, but just in my research of everything I've discovered, you will see that anyone who is being diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, all these different mental illnesses, ask them what happened to them as a child. 9 out of 10 times, it is something horrific trauma has happened to them. And you can't tell me there's not a correlation there, because your mind, your brain gets rewired as a child, and it does certain things. And so what happens is now when you wake up as a 30, 40-year-old person, you wake up and the first thing you say is, I'm not good enough, because it's your default. It's ingrained. It's what you feel. But Dr. Terry always says, you're never going to feel your way into this. You're never going to feel your way into this. You have to make the choice.
The conscious effort.
That's it. You get to choose. So now what happens is you do this core story mapping. You see the lies, you see the wound. You replace it with the truth. And you have to every day wake up and make a decision that I believe that I have immeasurable value. And as you continue to practice that with anything, it does begin to renew you, just like the Word of God renews you. It says, be not transformed to this world, but be renewed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so as we read the Scriptures, we get renewed by what the truth is. As we decide and choose, I have immeasurable value, that's now the truth that I walk into. So that's the equipping and the empowering that someone gets to take, to be able to have control back.
I think that control too, to realize that like your brain is what, like, you are not your brain. You are
Right.
the spirit. You are
That's it.
you are, there's so much more. You're not just your brain. So
Yeah.
realizing that is the controller.
Yeah.
And that, like, it's obviously a lot easier said than done, but like, you have the opportunity and choice to rewire it. But
Exactly.
a lot of people may not know that. Like, it's a
Totally.
matter of, like, literally, you could say, I am going to be this X, Y, or Z, or I am not going to be X,
Yeah.
Y, or Z. And that's your choice. Like, you have the
It's
choice.
so true.
You have the choice.
Yeah, I was reading Dr. Caroline Leaf's book, something mental mess, cleaning up your mental mess, or I can't remember the full name of her other book, but she says in there, she talks about that, and she says, your brain does not control your mind. Your mind controls your brain. It's whatever you think about is your future, is your world.
Yeah,
Whatever you behold, you become. And hope is a positive imagination. Okay, hope is a positive imagination. And what happens is, whatever images that we are remembering or thinking about every single day, whatever loop that we're playing, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in our life. So if I'm constantly thinking I'm not good enough, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what's going to happen. I'm manifesting that.
Yeah.
But hope is the positive imagination. Hope says that I'm not what happened to me. Hope says that
There's more.
there's more. That's right. And so if I lean into that, and especially when I now have the tools, that's why it's important to get therapy, get around people, talk about mental health. Because now, you don't know what you don't know. But
Yeah.
now that I know that that makes sense. That was my core wound, my core lie. My core truth is this. Okay, I get the choice. I can decide to believe that through hope, through faith. And that's when I believe someone's world starts turning.
It's a wild concept to think about, but like, your inner child is essentially controlling you until you become conscious of it. And then it's almost like that inner talk is, I got it now. Like, you've gotten me this far, but like, let me take over now. Like, you've
Perfectly
gotten me
said.
to this point,
Yep.
and now, like you said, we're adults now. We understand. We have experience. Like, you can be a kid again.
Exactly. And I think through that process, so many beautiful things happen. And one of the most beautiful things that happen, which I believe is like the key to unlocking mental health, is forgiveness. Because you have to forgive two people: your offender and yourself. Because as a child, you didn't know to do better. Or even if it wasn't just in your childhood, okay, this is for anything. This is in your adulthood. You have to forgive that person, and then you have to forgive yourself. And when you do, that's when true healing begins. Because I'm sure a lot of people have heard the saying, but unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's destructive. It's going to torment you and kill you. And meanwhile, that person is off, never thinking about you, doing whatever their life is.
Continuing on.
But it has you held in bondage. And so for a lot of people, that's going to probably be, of all the things that I've said on this podcast, that's probably going to be the one thing they can take with them and take away. That like, I don't know. And then the next question is going to be, well, I don't know how to forgive.
It's as simple as feeling it and saying it. When you say it, it starts to, like, it may not be an instant feeling of like everything's gone.
Yeah.
But if you get up and, I forgive this person, I forgive every day or twice a day, like, that's the repetition that starts rebuilding those neural pathways. And then the forgiveness towards that person, you don't have to say it to them. Like, you need to say it to them for yourself, in yourself. Like, they may never know you forgive them, but it doesn't matter if they know or not. It's a matter of how you feel about the situation.
100%.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Sounds like you have experience with forgiveness.
Honestly, I have not dealt with, I don't understand how I understand.
Okay.
I don't.
Really?
Like, it just is natural in a way. Like, the more I've dove down the path of like understanding how my mind works, I understand like the concepts of it. There's only a couple small things that I've like noticed in its relationship aspects that childhood things. I'll just tell you, like, I had in first grade, there was this girl that I had a huge crush on, and like I like being young, like I loved this girl. And I remember talking to my mom about it, and like, I really like this girl, like, and like she's like, you should tell her, ask her to be your girlfriend. And like I brought flowers and a card, and like, and she's like, I don't like you. And like, that's first grade me, and like I never thought about that time frame really, like it ever affected me, and I still don't know if it did or not, but I've revisited it, so I think it did. But I was doing during 75 hard, that challenge I was doing, I meditate a lot, and like I had a very in-depth meditation, and like for some reason I started with like riding my bike to school, and like I was like, I wonder if I remember the route that I used to take, and like I got to the school, but like in my head, like I was there, like I was seeing the school, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I'm meditating and I'm like seeing this past thing. And then I was like looking at different classrooms, and I remembered, but when I got to that classroom, that where it happened, that came back up.
Whoa,
and I was like, man, I haven't thought about that girl in a long time. Why am I thinking about this girl right now? And then I connected that to like, wow, I got rejected at a very young age, and that had a thing. Like I never date people. Like I've had my first girlfriend was senior year.
Yeah.
And like I never realized that, but that connection was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But like outside of that, like there isn't many things that I'm aware of right now that are affecting me from childhood wise. But like, but I understand the concept. I don't know. It's very wild because I'm like leaning into it more. Imposter syndrome. Yeah. That's something I've battled with WorthWhile. Like, what gives me the right to tell people like that they're worthwhile, or that like, oh, you can do this and you can do that, when it's like I haven't experienced some of the things that other people might be experiencing. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like we have this understanding for a reason.
That's it.
And you're not supposed to understand why.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, and I think for me, along this journey, I have felt, you hear all the negative self-talk, and you get a choice. Sometimes I sit there and listen to them, let it beat up on me. But most times, most days, I can feel that it's completely like an attack to stop doing what I'm doing. Because the same thing comes to me. It's like, well, who do you think you are? You're talking about these issues, and like you've never dealt with that, and you've whatever. And the truth is, I've gone through a lot, because a lot of people in my life struggle with mental health, and I've watched it. I've been around it constantly.
You've experienced it indirectly.
Yeah, totally. And I thank God that I have been mentally intact and haven't like completely lost it and had a breakdown, which was totally could have happened, and there was grace on that. But at the same time, I it's like I've had this like inside view of what's going on, and I've been able to maintain through, thankfully, I feel like spiritually, like my faith, and to being able to lean into that and see that, oh wow, this is really happening, and there's a dark place this is going to take us. And so my heart is like, it's just how I'm wired. Like I'm a protector, I'm a challenger. Like I did my Enneagram, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so me. I'm a protector, I'm a challenger, and I will fight to the death. And so when I see our society and generation being just slaughtered by not a burglar, not an outside force, but the enemy is within. Mm-hmm. We have become our worst enemy. We have become our greatest threat. Suicide has now surpassed the number of homicides, like times 2.
That's crazy.
So we're not even concerned with people coming and murdering us, or it's us.
Spiritual warfare.
Yeah, exactly.
Spiritual warfare.
It's now I feel like the adversary, the enemy, knows that, dude, this is easier now. I can go straight to them. I can go straight into their mind, because the battle's in the mind. Yeah. And so if I can get them here, they kill themselves. I don't even have to bring an outside intruder.
That's what crossed my mind. The battle's in the mind, and the weapons are your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That just crossed my mind. So
no, that's true.
Yeah. And you have the choice of what weapon you use.
That's it. And because, yeah, exactly, like your weapon is the thoughts that thoughts that you allow, the thoughts that I'm going to decide to choose the truth about who I am. I think my heart is for people who don't know the truth about who they are right now.
What do you think the answer for that is?
What we're doing right here.
Yeah. Because there's someone that could be listening or will be listening that's trying to find that, and they're like, man, this makes sense. Like
that's all that I noted. That's my lane. I don't. Yeah. I think the more that we can bring awareness to it, it's like with anything. It's like with breast cancer. It's like It's like with any type of cancer. It's the preventative care. Is go get checked out, go get your mammogram, go, sex trafficking. Like, it's the awareness, preventative, know your surroundings, like those things, like that's what's going to help us. We need to have preventative care for mental health, because a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people right now that are like also on the verge, like maybe they feel like, okay, they're experiencing some of these things, but I'm not going to take my life.
Yeah.
I would never take my life. Oh, you wouldn't right now. But the perfect storm come in, let's say 2 years, and
that stuff builds up.
Oh yeah, at the exact time that you find out your husband's leaving you, or he has a divorce, and then you lose your job, and then your kids are taken away, and then your health declines. It's like all the things. And what I've been discovering from people who have taken their life, it's like this perfect storm. And I believe it's a complete assignment from the enemy to have a perfect storm in your life. And so what you have to do is get on the defense. We were born into a war. You can like it or not, but there is good and there is evil. We were born into a war, and you have to decide which battle you're on, which one you're fighting on. And so the moment you know that is the moment you can rise up and say, okay, I'm going to fight for my life. And right now, we have to fight for our life.
See, in the root of that, and I've said this in a couple of podcasts in the past, but it's the choice.
Yeah.
Like, at the root of it, we have the choice, and I don't think people realize that you have the choice.
Yes.
Like, it's as simple as it sounds, but it's easier said than done. But you can say it right now. Like, I will be great. I will be fulfilled.
That's
like,
it.
You have the choice to say that, or you can not.
Yeah.
And
I
like,
just, even as you're speaking, I just hear people that could be watching saying, well, no, I don't feel like I have a choice because I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in this place, or I don't know, I just saw like a young person that maybe is in an abusive home with parents, or like whatever, they feel stuck, and you feel like this is going to be your life forever. And that's what the negative self-talk, that's what the enemy, that's what the lie comes and says. Your life will always be like this. You're going to be in pain. This is going to be happening to you, but that's not true. That is not true. The sun will come up. The storm does not last forever, and you will have a future. One day you're going to have a family. One day you're going to have a job. One day you're going to experience like the world. You're going to travel. And so I just hear people that like they feel stuck, and I just want to encourage them that
don't give up.
Don't give up. This isn't going to be your life forever, but start believing now. Start doing the things that you can do now. And I just know that God is going to open up doors for them. Like, God is going to allow them to see the light. He's going to send confirmation. He's going to send signs, and there's going to be a hope. There's going to be a peace. There's going to be a covering. And so I just know that the only hope for the world is Jesus, is God. And so for me, like, I can sit here like all day and talk about all the things we can do, and we can do that, and that's going to be great. But the person who's going to help you the most is your Creator. And
so to touch on that, because I feel like the people that may be in that situation, your thoughts may be like, there is no God, there is no light, like this wouldn't be happening. But like, even if you're in a questioning stage, like ask for signs.
That's it.
Ask for that proof, and you will receive it.
Yeah.
Like you have to. Your words are powerful.
Oh yeah.
Your words are extremely powerful, and just ask for that guidance. Ask for the
That's
light.
it.
Ask for the proof of existence.
Oh yeah. Ask for God. Ask for the real God to reveal Himself. I think it's to think that it would be a miracle. It would be a crazy thing to believe that there's an actual God. It's also a very crazy thing to believe that you were formed in your mother's womb, and you have all of your eyes and your nose, and you have your legs and your arms, and everything came out. Like, that's a miracle. To not even know, no one knows. It's so hard to fathom, but exactly what you're saying, to make it so simple and not as complex, is just to ask God to reveal Himself. Because I think that's kind of where you begin, and you can feel Him. That's the really cool thing about God, is that He's alive, and so He will reveal Himself. He will show you through other people and through His creation, through nature, so
universe itself, like that's
absolutely
powerful.
Yeah.
Well, there's something that I usually ask people on here. It's kind of like a thought-provoking question, but if you can go to any age in your past and give yourself advice, what age and what would it be?
That's good. That's good. That's real good. Let me think. What's some defining parts? Defining parts. I don't know. I think this is just me being who I am, just being completely transparent. I think that when so our family grew up very ultra like religious. So I'm super grateful for my heritage because I really experienced the Lord and I had a relationship with the Lord. But we grew up in a different, very, very strict religion. And I think that when I was young, I was very embarrassed of it. Even though I still had a relationship with God, I was really embarrassed with it. And so I think I just made decisions that were like, in some ways, mocking to God. And so for me, like, this would be the biggest thing because like faith is the number one thing that I value in my life. So so that question, I would go to like faith aspect. And yeah, I didn't really have a handle on like who I was when I was young, and I was embarrassed of like the Bible. I was in like I wouldn't. There was just silly things that I think I just had a warped view on, and so for me it would be just really like taking ownership of that, because I feel like that is my biggest strength in my life right now, and I'm like, oh man, if I had that like when I was like younger, too, that there would be like more that could have happened.
More understanding.
Yeah, more understanding. Yeah.
So. Or at least not even understanding, but acceptance of yourself in a sense.
Totally acceptance and. Yeah, I think just missed opportunities, like even just proactive ways. Like in my school, I was my public school, like there was FCA, that's what it's called, like Fellowship of Christian. Yeah. And just like I would roll my eyes at that, and I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? Like I was like embarrassed or whatever of my faith, but yet inside I wasn't. It was just this weird thing. I don't even know what the cycle was. But I look back and I'm like, dude, I would have been so lit on fire for that school. I would have been like, and I don't know. So that's probably it.
Yeah, hey, see, well, that's why I asked that question, because I mean, it makes you think back for a second, and you're like,
It did. I am embarrassed of that. I don't think I've ever actually
thought about that time.
Vocalized that. I've thought about it a lot, but I don't think I've ever. I think it's definitely like probably a guilt too. I forgive myself for that.
See?
I forgive myself for that. I don't know. I think, just the experiences that I had, was just that way.
Well,
I did finally take it on, though, when I was 19. I was like, I'm going to read the Bible.
I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see going forward with, Sound of Hope and Good Seas Entertainment?
Oh, man. I'm so excited. I'm just ready to, like, give birth to this thing. It's just how I feel. And I'm so excited because I truly believe it's gonna help people, not because I'm doing it, but because it feels like it's holy. It's like a holy calling. It's like a God-inspired project that is just really needed. I'm not just trying to create another thing.
Yeah.
Like I really feel like we need more hope. We need Jesus. We need people. We need each other. We need love, and we need acceptance. We need belonging. And for people to know that, like, they're not what happened to them, and that they have a great future. It sounds so simple, but to some people, it's monumental.
Yeah.
And so we take that for granted.
Well, I'm excited to watch it grow and watch you grow and see how many people you influence, because you obviously know what you're talking about, and I feel like that's
sometimes.
Yeah, we all get a little off track, but But that's going to be powerful. I think that there's a rise of calling recently because of like the path that the world is going on. Mm-hmm. Spiritual warfare is definitely happening, and it took me. I don't even know when I started realizing this. That's why I don't understand. Like I feel like it's just been in me to understand. Like I've been blessed with the understanding in order to help, but it's very apparent especially in the past couple of years, I think like especially like since COVID time frame, like when that happened, I felt like there was a separation of like the good and evil like happening, and it's like more and more people started, you know, reflecting and understanding themselves with that time, and starting things. Like you started that, and there's a couple other people I've talked to that have started things in that time frame. Or there was the fear. Fear was induced, and it was like this is bad. Everything's happening, and it's like yes, there was COVID is bad, and it did take people's lives, but like that fear is still there.
Totally.
And that is just amplifying more and more, and it's the control and like all these things. So I mean, at the same time, both of these things are happening. I think slowly you're going to see the shift start happening back, where like the positive and like the people that took that as like this is a chance for a new opportunity, a new beginning, to start happening. And I mean, it's happening.
I believe that 1,000%. And just to tag to that, it just brought to my memory when God gave me this vision to start Good Seeds Entertainment and Sound of Hope. I remember what he gave me, what I saw, and as he was giving me this, I saw like in an open vision, it seems like, exactly what you just said. People from all over the world rising up, that like within their callings, within their what God was. I felt, this is what I felt. I'm not the only one. I feel like this is like amazing, and God's giving me something, and immediately I felt God say, "Oh, this is worldwide. This is global. Like you're not the only one." Because when you feel like you're the only one, you also take on a lot of pressure of like, I'm the one that has to save the world. And that's not it, because that's never going to be on my shoulders. That is Jesus Christ. He's the only one that can save the world. I can't do that, but I can point people to him. But I had this weight, and I remember seeing all these people everywhere, like rising up out of an ocean. Just like, it's just all these like businesses and these projects and these things that we're going to help inspire and to help people. And I truly believe that. And it just keeps coming to my mind. But on our drive up here, we were listening to a podcast from Ed Millett and Maxwell. What's his name? I can't think of it. Okay, John Maxwell. Okay, wow.
John Maxwell.
I kept thinking Max Lucado. Okay, John Maxwell, and he said he wrote a new book. I think it's called Leadership, and he was talking about in one of his. He's like the number one like business, like leadership book sold like 30 million copies. But he said in one of his chapters it was about callings, and he said your calling is your purpose with a divine touch. Your purpose with a divine touch. And I had never heard it like that before. And I said, wow, that is so true. Because when you have a calling, I believe that God not only gives you your your passion and your gifting, but he gives you a grace. He gives you a divine touch from him, when it's your calling. And so, I believe that for everybody that's out there. And I'm excited to see our generation really take ownership and choice, to move into who they are, who they're really meant to be and called to be, and to rise up and live out their God-given potential and purpose, and their calling, and they don't have to do it alone. That's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, let everybody know where they can find information on, like, if they want to look up Sound of Hope or Good Seeds. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or find you.
Yes, our website is soundofhope.com and goodseedsentertainment.org. We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and our Instagram is at A Sound of Hope, and my Instagram is at Andrea Thomas Hand.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm like, what is it again?
Well, I'm going to give you this gift.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Open her up.
Thank you. And look at this great packaging, WorthWhile brand.
It could be worldwide.
T-shirt. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay, gotta show. I love the colors. I love everything about it. And I love how I'm going to look in the mirror and it's going to say you are worth it.
Yep.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Well,
I am worth it, and
exactly.
so are you. And
Thank
so
you.
are you. You are worth it.
See, and that's the closeout for me right there. I let everybody know.
Yeah.
Just never forget that you are worthwhile, and always strive to be the best version of you that you can. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this week's WorthWhile Spotlight. Our goal is to motivate people to become the best version of themselves possible through the power of storytelling. Our stories are written by the things that we experienced growing up, and these experiences, negative and positive, shape who we are and what we stand for. The beautiful thing about your story is that you get to decide how it's told. So as a diamond in the rough of life, hang tight and let your light shine bright.